Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Friday, November 10th, 2023, we meet today to talk about THETA, the crypto from THETA Network. So as usual, we're going to dissect this video into two parts. A fundamental part, we will come back to what THETA is, to the usefulness of THETA in THETA Network, its current affairs, and then we will go to the prices to project prices, medium, long-term on purchase prices, sales, and it starts right away. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training course worth €400, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. So, what is THETA? THETA is an infrastructure made available to people who wish to develop the equivalent of a YouTube. So, to be a little more precise, it's because I'm schematizing a lot. But it's really the technical elements to be able to build a site or an application that will use video and that will make video available. That's really where they built MetaChain, which is their blockchain and which is their infrastructure solution for everything that revolves around videos and the use of blockchain in videos. For example, through the management of NFTs, with the management of DRM, whether it is the validation of certain videos in a certain process cycle, whether it is through the management of the videos themselves, through their API, because there are several big problems. The first problem is the notion of CDN. You may not realize it, but when you opened this video, you were actually preloaded. You may have seen the little YouTube bar that was starting to turn gray before it turned red, which is the part that is playing. Well, in fact, this gray part is someone who provides you with this cache, okay? Which, in fact, provides you with the video, which preloads the video, what we used to call, for those who knew that era, the little wheel which turned, which did buffering, therefore the notion of buffer implied the video that's loading upstream so you can watch it. Well, that's a shot, okay? It's called CDN, so it's a notion of caching which is made available. Because if we are all loading the videos on the same server, you can imagine that it will be a problem. Same, we can't have just one server, we have to have a plurality of them spread out everywhere. And all that is a real cost. A cost which is so significant that, for example, even YouTube enters into discussions with the various operators to share the costs of CDNs. I don't know if you remember Free at the time, a few years ago, even a lot more than a few years ago in 2013, 2014 minus 2015, in which we had problems for those who had free-to-load videos because precisely there was no CDN, there was no cache, because in particular YouTube had asked that Free take the responsibility, also take the financial responsibility of creating a CDN for their own server, because they considered that YouTube was important enough that free users to have access to YouTube would perhaps change operators. So something that didn't happen like that, there was an agreement that took place, but it still took quite a bit of time, and therefore the management of the CDNs was extremely expensive. On this, we have our friend THETA, who has built an entire infrastructure to do without CDNs. So yes and no. What it will use is nodes all over the world in which we will make available our computing power, our storage, what we do. In fact, quite simply, to be able to distribute around us to people who wish to watch a video and who use THETA Network in any case, who use an application that uses THETA Network. At that point, we will use decentralized CDNs, which greatly reduces costs. And it changes a lot of things too, because it actually gives back the possibility of being able to create interactions between the cache, between the different actors, whether the people who distributes the cache, whether it is the people who edit the videos, whether it is the site itself, and whether it is the infrastructure. So it allows us to recreate a new ecosystem, and that's THETA's strength, and that's what they're trying to highlight. On this, they also try to highlight the fact that it is really efficient, implying that it costs much less to put into production. They are talking about less 50 to less 70% in terms of cost saving, therefore implying cost reduction. We even have their costs, so also implying the technical blocks, because these are things which are made available to developers in which we will have the encoding. Therefore, the possibility of being able to encode a video, that it's always very expensive. It's the computing power. We're going to have the storage, the same. The fact of being able to store in different places to be able to have the cache, to be able to distribute the video, it still costs a lot. And we has the transit of information, which are made available. And we can clearly see the difference between $97 and $230 here on their simulation. I admit that their simulation is not necessarily accurate, but at least it is intended to truly represent the cost. On the other hand, the problem we will have with THETA is that it implies that we must completely rebuild an application in a different way. And the second thing is there still a need to have applications around video distribution? It's the same principle when we have a leader, such as, for example, YouTube or TikTok or social networks in general. What is the market share that remains to be able to build an application which will precisely offer the equivalent? From a YouTube, for me, we shouldn't get stuck on this because for them, in fact, they provide an infrastructure and an API to be able to distribute videos. So whether it is when we build, for example, why not an application and we need to distribute videos? We build an application, why not a decentralized social network and we need to update arrangement of the videos? It's the same principle. We could use THETA network, and in any case, it's ecosystem to be able to no longer take care of the entire video part and interface it directly with a specialized infrastructure. In terms of THETA news, I admit that it's a bit dull. There isn't much being that they released almost a year ago. Last year, really, QF4 2022 and QOWN 2023. They released Metacane, which is really the technical block that THETA needed, and which is really the culmination of the infrastructure process of THETA. Now, they are trying to work on decentralization and the number of nodes. So, when we look a little bit at their Twitter, we see that we have a lot of communication around the ease of building a pre-caching and encoding node, in which you earn rewards and simply block tank T-Fuel. T-Fuel being the token which is actually linked to the ecosystem, which will be used for transactions. You saw it here. T-Fuel, this is what is used. So THETA is used in itself for network protection and some other functionality, but it is not the currency that will take place. And we must actually understand the principle of that. It is precisely a notion of TNTT20, therefore implied THETA Network Token 20. So it is the same principle as ERC-T20, which are the cryptos which are on Ethereum. We actually have a new standard that they have instantiated to make their entire ecosystem available and therefore develop their ecosystem. We are going to finish in the fundamental part. We are going to attack the technical parts. Technical part in which we have a THETA, which is still magnificent when we look and we know a little bit of the history of this token. We have a large accumulation. Here it is an old project. It took a long time to put in place, which is rather logical because there are a lot of patents which have been filed. There is a technology that is really unique and they really want to transform the ecosystem. So we really have something that is unique in terms of structuring, in which we have here the establishment of an accumulation, first acceleration, retracement with a reaccumulation which is carried out in November 2020, advent of the bull run at the beginning of 2021, big acceleration of pacifier for an ATH which was formed here at $15, and then it was the descent which been very long despite the fact that we had a small reacceleration on the last part of the bull run. But it didn't last long because we had a lot of dilution of the token, and THETA was not yet ready. Clearly they've been ready. In fact, they are ready now. It's common 2023 where they were ready. So they were not ready to be able to absorb precisely the utility that THETA could offer. And that's why we actually had this devaluation. And devaluation, moreover, which respected a rather classic rule in 3 stages, A, B, C, in which we then began the establishment of a very nice accumulation which nevertheless lasted a certain time. We will zoom in on that so you can see clearly, which was done in exactly 2 steps. First bearish impact, which was Terra Luna. Second bearish impact, which was FTX. Obviously, it hurts the market very badly. And then here we have the SEC announcement, the fact that overall, all the altcoins were securities, and that they were going to continue all the securities. I'm schematizing, but that's more or less it. And that's it. We got over it. The accumulation ended. I'll tell you, gave this spot zone by telling you what we are seeing here is a very nice accumulation that we have, and we can see it very well because we have an SC, STB, Spring. We really have the establishment of a classic accumulation of Wyckoff SC. I retrace, I take the liquidity of the SC with the STB, I retrace, I resume the liquidity with the Spring and very strong bullish acceleration. Break-off structure, so here we have validated a small accumulation. So that is the small accumulation which is itself in the large accumulation, okay? Large accumulation that is located here. So there, To validate the upward acceleration and the validation of this accumulation, we will have to take this level, which will be the $3. So on that, it's going to be really very important to be able to consolidate above that level to say that in fact there, we will have something that will be really impulsive to validate its acceleration and at the same time validate the fact of having precisely the rupture of this accumulation to validate an establishment, finally an establishment of a big retracement with targets which are a little bit stronger. In terms of targets, we will be able to look here for the major break-off structure, which will be really very important, which is here in fact the Terra Luna front, in which we must look for a $4, $4.5, in which we will obviously have a lot of people who will come out and then we will look much higher. So to go much higher, there are several things that must be taken into consideration. One, we need to have an ecosystem that develops. Theta currently has very few ecosystems. We have a few small bits, but we don't really have mass adoption, so we need to have a big application that is focused on Theta in which we will have visibility. As long as we do not have that, it will be very complicated to break key levels, like for example $10, or even redo a new AT8. We can very well project ourselves by saying that we are in a big wave 1, big wave 2, Elliotist, and have a target of $68 to $27 for Theta. On the other hand, to achieve this, it must be after a bull run, therefore towards the end of the bull run, that we have an ecosystem of Theta, that we have alongside a use of Theta with applications which precisely use the Theta technology, but not small applications, large applications in which we will start to have flow. Because if we don't have flow, unfortunately, we won't have any Theta valuation. And that is valid for many, many cryptos when we are upstream of the bull run. We are not going to have a part of speculation which will be brought by the bull run, but we are not necessarily going to have big AT8s if we have the fundamental I'm not. And you'll definitely have to keep an eye on it. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy. And we'll see you tomorrow, 13:30, for the weekly.